Hey everyone, I want to welcome you back to the channel. On today's episode, we're going to take a look at an early opera by George Gershwin, and the first, actually, to be performed entirely by African Americans. Let's peel back history on Porgy and Bess. Hey guys, before I get into the video, hey, I wanna just address a few things. So yes, it has been a while since I've actually done a video for all of you. We are up to 9 subscribers now, so thank you to the 9th subscriber. It was most recently, I believe. But anyway, I have actually been quite sick. I actually came down with COVID recently, so I have been pretty much, fighting to stay alive and get better. I'm pretty much 50%, 55% better, which is a good thing. But anyway, so getting in today's video, Porgy and Bess. So basically, it's an English opera by American composer George Gershwin with a libretto, and libretto is kind of like the book of the musical. It's what the actors speak. It's kind of like their script. So their script libretto was written by author DuBose Hayward, and the lyricist was Ira Gershwin. The production featured a cast of classically trained African American singers, and in 1976, at the Houston Grand Opera, the production gained a renewed popularity, and, fun fact, it is now one of the best known and most frequently performed operas. Now, Porgy and Bess tells the story of Porgy, a disabled black street beggar living in the slums of Charleston, South Carolina. His attempts to rescue Bess from the clutches of Crown, her violent and possessive lover, and Sportin' Life, her drug dealer. In the fall of 1933, Gershwin and Hayward signed a contract with the Theatre Guild to write the opera. In the summer of 1934, Gershwin and Hayward traveled to Folly Beach, South Carolina, which is a small island near Charleston, giving Gershwin a feel for the area and its music. In the fall of 1935, Gershwin's first version of the opera, running 4 hours, was performed privately in a concert version at Carnegie Hall. On October 10, 1935, Porgy and Bess would officially open to theatergoers at the Alvin Theater, with the run lasting for 124 performances. The leading roles were played by Todd Duncan and Anne Brown. Now, here's the interesting part. Brown was a 20-year-old student at Juilliard, where she would become the first African-American vocalist. The character of Bess was originally a secondary character, but as Gershwin was impressed with Brown's singing, he actually expanded the part of Bess, casting Brown in the title role. After rehearsals were completed, Gershwin invited Brown to join him for lunch, where he told her, "Hey, I want you to know, Mrs. Brown, that henceforth and forever after, Gershwin's opera will be known as Porgy and Bess." After the Broadway run, a national tour started in January of 1936 in Philadelphia and traveled to Pittsburgh and Chicago before ending in our nation's capital, Washington, D.C. Fun fact, during the Washington run, the cast actually protested segregation at the National Theater, resulting in the first ever integrated audience for a performance of any show at that theater. Porgy and Bess would see the first Broadway revival in 1942 at the Majestic Theater. The show was refashioned in the style of musical theater, which Americans were used to hearing from Gershwin, which resulted in a drastically cut version of the opera compared with the first Broadway production. In March of 1943, the opera would transfer to the Royal Danish Theatre in Copenhagen. Having performed during the Nazi occupation, the performance was notable for being performed by an all-white cast, which resulted in the Nazis forcing the closure of the production after 22 sold-out performances. Fast forward 9 years. A second revival of the production would take place in 1952 at the Stoll Theatre in London, which divided the opera into 2 acts. So no longer a 4-hour production, but now a 2-hour production. The production would welcome Cab Calloway. Not really sure where my audience is currently watching this video. If you really know who Cab Calloway was, he was basically an American jazz singer whose career spanned from 1907 to 1994, which resulted in, get a whiff of this, an 87-year career. So Cab Calloway joins the cast in the title role of Sportin' Life, which is a role that Gershwin had kind of composed with him in mind, as well as the first internationally acclaimed African-American soprano, Linton Price, as Bess. Now, after the tour in Europe, the production came back home to the Ziegfeld Theater on Broadway. The production would then go on to tour North America, and then embarking on an international tour performing in Venice, Paris, London, Greece, Switzerland, and Yugoslavia. 1955 and 56 would see the company touring the Middle East, Africa, Russia, and Latin America. During the 60s and 70s, Porgy and Bess mostly remained as a shelved musical due to the production being deemed racist. A new light would grace the production in 1976 when the Houston Grand Opera, directed by Jack O'Brien, restored the complete score for a new staging of the show. After transferring to the Uris Theater on Broadway, it allowed the public to take in the operatic whole as first envisioned by Gershwin. It was here that Porgy and Bess was finally accepted as an opera. Then, in 1985, the Metropolitan Opera would stage the production for 16 performances, seeing further revivals in 1986, 89, and 1990 for a total of 54 performances. In 1986, Trevor Gunn would tackle the production at England's Glyndebourne Festival. The show was scenically expanded and videotaped for TV in 1993. From 1996 to 1998, the centennial celebration of the Gershwin brothers included another brand new version of the show. It wasn't until 8 years later, when in 2006, for the premiere at the Savoy Theatre in London, the production was adapted to fit the conventions of musical theater. Dialogue was used from the original novel, replacing the sung-through dialogue with naturalistic scenes. However, despite mostly positive reviews, the production closed due to poor box office returns. Now, in order to work to the next generation of theatergoers, the American Repertory Theater in Massachusetts made changes to the plot, dialogue, and score to be more appealing to a more contemporary audience. The production would open with Audra McDonald, Norm Lewis, and David Allen Greer. The early reviews of the shows were between positive and mixed, with critics divided on the success of the adaptation, staging, and setting. Now, despite being nominated for 10 Tony Awards and winning in the categories of Best Revival of a Musical and Best Performance by a Leading Actress in a Musical, the show would become the longest-running production of Porgy and Bess on Broadway thus far. Now, aside from the stage, Porgy and Bess would see its story cast on the big screen as well, beginning with a 1959 film by Samuel Goldwyn. In 1945, Warner Brothers would use the show in a biography of Gershwin entitled Rhapsody in Blue. The film featured an extended musical scene recreating the opening of the original Broadway production. Fun fact, the 1985 film White Nights features a scene in which Gregory Hines performs "There's a Boat That's Leavin' Soon for New York," paying homage to the original character, Sportin' Life. In 2002 and 2009, both the New York City and the San Francisco Opera recorded live versions for future release on DVD and Blu-ray. Fun fact, did you know that Janis Joplin recorded a blues rock version of Summertime with Big Brother and the Holding Company on American rock band that formed in the same psychedelic music scene that produced the Grateful Dead and Jefferson Airplane? Porgy and Bess basically is a landmark work of American art that has not only helped break down racial barriers, showing that beautiful and meaningful works of art could be created, by African American artists, but also continues to inspire and resonate with audiences today. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to today's video. If you enjoyed this, please comment on what you liked or disliked. I'd love to hear from you. And if you want to see other videos like this, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. And until next time, that's a wrap.